Advent. Thank you, choir. We have just enough of everybody to do just what the Spirit needs us to do today. And we got the Advent candle lit, very traditional part of Advent in our flavor of Christianity. And then you might have noticed our lighthouse has become a Christmas tree. So it is adorned with purple lights. Purple is the color of Advent. And speaking of patience, Advent is a season of patience and waiting for the coming of Jesus. So there's Advent, then there's Christmas, and then there's Epiphany. So we'll be celebrating each of those three things across the next 6 or 7 weeks. So welcome aboard. It's kind of fun on our lighthouse or Christmas tree there. We have chrismons. So chrismons are Christian ornaments. So they went through these chrismons yesterday, remembering some of the ornaments have a nautical theme. So we were looking for the anchors. I think they found there's some anchors there. And the symbol of the fish. Isn't that great? The symbol of the Christian fish has new meaning this Advent season as we have our lighthouse and shoreline theme with us. So, and then we have our beautiful ornaments that were part of our workshop last week. And it has, is sand and is it sea glass inside those hanging ornaments? So just wanted to point out some different factors of this Advent season's start. So the Apostle Paul, I think I'm supposed to not like him, because he said stuff about women, and he also said stuff allegedly about LGBTQ people that I disagree with. So I'm not supposed to like Paul, except for the fact that, number one, some of those verses weren't written by Paul. Some of those verses you have to read in context, because if he's saying this here and then he said that there, it doesn't jibe. And some of those verses are just cherry picked out and misused. But I will save that for another day to dig into some more. For today, I think we need to develop our Paul muscle a lot better, because people have cherry-picked these extraneous verses that nobody writes a song about, and they've forgotten all the beautiful verses that are more centered in Paul and Paul's witness to a loving God. So, you ready to be equipped by why not like Paul, okay? You need to hear about Paul. And we're going to zero in just on Galatians. And Galatians isn't even one of his more famous works, but there's lots of good stuff in Galatians. Well, I'm going to go back to last week for some, just one line right there. If somebody says, oh, Paul, he's anti-women. What? Paul is the one who last week told us there is no longer male or female. Remember that? Paul said that. So we need to know Paul to counterpunch some of the ways people take Paul and, at least confuse the narrative a little bit and say, well, wow, why did he say that then, I wonder? So buckle up. Let's take a look at just Galatians 5. There's so much to love about what Paul said in Galatians 5. Galatians 5 has the word freedom quite a bit. Even in our excerpt today, freedom, freedom, freedom. And he opens his letter saying, we have freedom from evil. Isn't that great? Thank you, Paul. We have freedom from evil. Jesus gives us freedom from evil. Today, he says, you have freedom from enemies of grace. So if somebody's trying to minimize grace or forget that grace is important, you have freedom from that. That's amazing. And then he says, you also have freedom for loving service. So don't use your freedom to beat up on people. You are free to use your freedom for loving service. Wow, Paul said that. That's what it's all about. Speaking of loving service, did you notice the number of times the word love came up? And this was just a short excerpt today where I was trying to zero in on fruit of the Spirit. And did you see Olivia had to keep going? Well, love came up. Oh, love came up again. Love is there. Love. So did I skip something? Did it go from freedom to love? No, I think I'm good. Nope, we're good. Love. Look at those beautiful strawberries. So love is all over the place. Paul is the one that said, love is patient, love is kind, the greatest of these is love. Lots of stuff about nothing separates us from the love of God. Romans. Love, 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 love. Paul is centered in love. Here, just in 5, he says, the only thing that matters, that's pretty strong language, the only thing that matters, if you know Christ, is faith working through love. That's it. I mean, put that in your pocket and quote it. And then again, loving service. It's about loving service. That's the point. Then here's one to put in your pocket. You know what the whole law is to Paul? Do you know what all of it is? Is it putting women down? Is it putting marginal people down? No, the whole of the law is, say it, Discovery, love neighbor. So it wasn't just the Old Testament who said it. It wasn't just Jesus, Paul. The whole law is love your neighbor. File that one away. And then when he starts listing those 9 fruit of the Spirit, the first one he lists is love. So this is just a small slice of Paul. And the word love and the meaning of love is pretty strong there. So speaking of love and fruit of the Spirit, let's take a look at those fruit of the Spirit. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, generosity, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. More of that, right? More of that. Lord, in your mercy, hear our prayer. More of that. Do you guys value those things? Yes or no? Do you? Do you think, you're serious, you like those things? Or do you think they're just kind of fluffy extras? How do you feel about those things? Are they just for children? Are they for kindergarten? When you get to middle school, high school, young adulthood, who needs them? The core of our being. The core of our being. Boy, more of that, right? The core of our being. And we don't create it, it's the Spirit. The Spirit is flowing through us, creating those things. Pretty amazing. But wait, there's more. This is just Paul in Galatians 5. We'll come back to fruit of the Spirit too. He also talks a couple different times about being crucified with Christ. This came up a couple weeks ago. I didn't dig into it as much, but then it pops up again here in chapter 5. I have been crucified with Christ. Paul seems to mean there my ego, my former life, the bad stuff has been crucified. It has been nailed to the cross. And now Jesus, the resurrected Lord, is alive in me, giving me new life. It is Jesus o'clock, as we said last week. We have new life. The old life is gone. The new life is alive in us. So Paul, boy, hitting some great things here at the end of his letter. Got one more week next week. So crucified with Christ, raised to new life. You can live the new life of the fruit of the Spirit. And there's one more thing. If you live by the Spirit and you're guided by the Spirit, so it's Spirit, 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 all the way down. You have died. You are raised up with Jesus Christ. It's this whole new covenant with the Spirit. Wow. So he's reminding the Galatians, this is the way it is. This is the way it is. So let's go back to the fruit of the Spirit again and dig in a little bit more about those qualities. And I have to say, it's very disappointing in our society today, the neglect, the lack of defense for the fruit of the Spirit. And maybe you all are called to defend the fruit of the Spirit a little bit more. So here's one example, and it doesn't matter who it is, because it just happens. But there's been an example lately of a public figure who called someone else publicly a bad name. And apparently there's enough people who thought that was a wrong thing to do that the next day or so, the press said, why did a public figure use this bad word for somebody publicly? And the response was, oh, that's honesty and openness. So friends, when you call somebody a bad word, do you say, I'm being honest and open? Is that okay? I'm being honest and open, so I will use that bad word regarding another person. Is that okay? Yes or no? And if it's not okay, why? Why isn't it okay to say, I'm being honest, I'm being open? We can have opinions, but we're not always right.
And so you say something like that, and you're just pushing that out in front of everybody. That makes it sound like that's everybody's opinion, when it really isn't. You could be really 100% wrong.
So it's putting your opinion like it matters more than other people's opinion. So what else would be? It's destructive. Say more about that.
It can only have a negative result.
It can only have no good can come from it. Yeah, no good can come from it.
Doesn't show love or kindness.
Right. So Bob's walking us back. Is this love? Let alone love for a neighbor. Is this kindness? You know, does it create joy? And I just wonder, could we just have that as a scorecard? You know, I want this on a little index card for the news, and then what passes for analysis of the news. Like, I just felt really saddened that something disrespectful happened, and then the press, I know we love to throw the press under the bus, but the analysis was, oh, okay, that's honesty and openness. Next story, next news cycle. I think for we as Christians, the news cycle is this. This is our news. This is what matters. And we are called to impact our society for things that matter, morals, values, and not pretend like it's not relevant. So yeah, I don't know what to do, but it's just kind of hair on fire for me. But maybe just, claim these things, and, it starts within us, and then apply, and just don't get hung up on just, here's a story, here's the next story, isn't it awful? Let's grieve a little bit. Let's think about it a little bit. When someone's just repeating something near us, we can say, gosh, I know what's core to my value system is in the Bible, and remembered these things. And maybe people just need to be reminded of these things and not just gloss it over. Well, you knew it was coming. I watched the American Revolution. You know how I love history. So I've got one more illustration here. Which one to use? Did you like it, Bob? You forgot to tell me if you liked it or not. We'll talk later. So, you know, part of the American Revolution story was George Washington. And it had lots and lots of other stories too. But I was really taken with George Washington. My goodness. First of all, he had a hard row to hoe. You know, he made a lot of mistakes. He had poor strategy. He didn't take care of his troops very well. The people in Philadelphia were criticizing him. You know, should we relieve him of his command? He lost some major battles. Deeper into the war, people mutinied on Washington. Man, you don't hear about this part of the story. I began to feel very sorry for the guy. Like, how did he persevere? So I need to find a biography and read more about Washington. One of the takeaways about Washington was that outwardly he was very calm. So I think, well, maybe he's just endowed with a very calm demeanor, and he's lucky. He doesn't get all wound up like me or maybe like other people. He was just able to handle a lot of stress, a lot of churn and failure and criticism. So he just has that calmness within him. Well, I heard another quote about Washington later after watching this series, that a sculptor of Washington said, you know what? Washington is not a calm person. The sculptor spent hours with Washington and observed that he had a fiery passion. Washington had opinions. He held grudges. He got angry. But for some reason, he was passionate, and yet he had self-mastery. Passionate and self-mastery. Kind of like that self-control word there. He had self-control. And someone said that Washington's first battle, Washington's first victory was over himself. Isn't that interesting? His first victory was over himself. Boy, sounds like the Apostle Paul to me, being crucified with Christ, the death of our lesser self. I think it's a process we go through every single day. I think Paul was pretty passionate, and Galatians is his processing, his passion. You foolish Galatians, I'm shocked at you. How did you leave grace behind? He's very passionate, but at the same time, his passion is out of love for the Galatians, out of healing, out of restoration, out of concern. There's a way to bridle our passions for the sake of goodness. So we're all on this journey. It's not like if we get angry, we're wrong. No, anger sometimes shows us that a proximity to the truth. Pay attention to our anger, process our anger. What is our anger telling us? We go, trust your process. There is pain in life. And I always use the image of lighting a candle and listening with God. Whatever, I will listen with love, whatever I am feeling. Because we're human and we're processing our dark passions. But as Christians, it is with the hope that the Spirit will raise us to new life and creation. So what hit me was, what is freedom? Paul talks about freedom, and I was really trying to understand, what does he mean by freedom? And I thought it might be freedom over ourselves, freedom from nonsense, freedom from news cycles. When we are free in Jesus Christ, we are freed from these dark passions, this negativity that can drag us down. We are freed from that. Yeah, freed from ourselves, freed from deadliness. And we are raised up to God's realm, which we can enjoy, which we can taste, and we can share right now. So go eat some fruit and share some fruit. To God be the glory. Amen.